this isn't a science experiment, that it's real, it's available today. There's a huge growth opportunity, not just for the innovators, but for those up and down the value chain to create and capture value. Business is the way that we're going to see real tectonic shifts and transformation in a post-petroleum world.
Hey, Ron, what's going on?
Oh, it's so nice outside, so let's keep it snappy.
And, once Memorial Day happens, people believe it's summer, and it does definitely feel that way, even though summer is still 11 days away.
Yeah, but it's so nice outside. So I appreciate how we do encourage our teams to enjoy the weather, but obviously get our work done. So just want to get this done and get outside just for a nice walk and then come back and be in front of my screen for the next 5 hours.
That sounds great. Okay, so Erum, you just had a Brooklyn moment. Why don't you tell our audience what that was?
Yeah. So I take the train into the office. Our office is located in Dumbo, Brooklyn, which is, I would say, the fancier part of Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a very big borough of New York City.
It used to be.
It used to be. Oh, what's the fancier part of Brooklyn then?
I think of Brooklyn Heights as being the fanciest part, or Diker Heights. Dumbo is fancy now, but it used to be a wreck.
Yeah. So it's fun that we have our office there because you have the views of Manhattan because you're right there on the water. But I take the train and I walk down the street, and I was walking the other day and someone that was driving yelled, Adam, and my son's name, Adam. So I was like, is this a parent of one of his daycare friends? Someone replied, oh, hey, what's up? In front of me, it was none other than Adam Driver. So I was like walking behind him. I was like, ooh, interesting. And you know me, like I love to socialize. So I'm trying to catch up with him, but at the same time, unknotting my wired headphones. So first of all, don't judge me for having wired headphones. They're in right now. But second of all, these wired headphones were tangled because I accidentally left them in my workout pants, and I had washed those pants and dried them. And then I pulled my crumpled up headphones out of the dryer. I'm like, oh my God. But then I tested them out and they work. So I couldn't keep up with him. I was just walking behind him for 2 blocks on the way to the office. And I saw where he lives because he turned and off the door. And I was like, okay, so there we go. I saw a celebrity. I discovered that my headphones that were washed and dried still works. It was a great Brooklyn moment, I would say.
Yeah, there's all sorts of celebrities that live around us. Felix has graduated from high school. Some friends of his that go to St. Anne's, which is a pretty famous school in Brooklyn Heights. We're going to Jake Gyllenhaal's sister's house in Park Slope. So Maggie Gyllenhaal is a longtime resident of Park Slope. There's a building over in Brooklyn Heights / Cobble Hill where all sorts of celebrities live.
Yeah. Another coincidence, the day that I saw Adam Driver was later that day, we went to Biotech investor hangout session, and I met this founder. I told him I was now dropping Adam Driver's name like we're best friends. And he was like, I also saw Adam Driver this morning. So like he saw him an hour before I saw Adam. And I was like, what? This is like such a small world. Biotech, celebrity sightings, even though we're not a celebrity podcast, we're not gossiping, we're just chit-chatting about the things that happen in Brooklyn and in our world.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned this investor event. Last week was New York Tech Week in New York City. So there was a number of events that were related to biotech, most of them focused on AI and biotech. You mentioned this event that we went to at LifeX, which is an investor fund focused on longevity, I think.
Yes. Yep.
And then I went to DeSci New York. Michael Fisher runs DeSci New York, and he had Dr. Michael Levin of Tufts University. He was talking about bioelectricity. I was just completely blown away by this guy, his thinking, and how electricity plays a completely different role than we think in biology. And biology is not really determined only by genetics, but also determined by the electrical currents that cells produce and are exposed to. So that was mind-blowing. Michael Fisher's going to come on the pod in a couple of weeks.
Really quick, though, about the bioelectricity, there's something there because putting, whether it's bioelectricity or even just regular electronics into clothing. I mean, I ran headphones through a washer and dryer and they still worked.
Don't you think that's more of a testament to the brand and how well it's made?
Yeah, it was an Apple wired headphones. So that's one thing. But if they can do it, anyone can do it. It's still working. So you can reverse engineer. Actually, I don't even know if they're Apple. It could be an off-brand one. But I'm just thinking of beanies. that have headphones installed into the beanie. I'm just thinking of what can we make with electronics that is wearable or things that get dirty easily that can be run through the washer and dryer.
Yeah, run through the washer is a big thing. Have you seen these bass backpacks or speaker backpacks? I think they have them for gamers, but it's another way of feeling the game as opposed to wearing the full bodysuit that responds. You just put on this vest that maybe has some sound drivers in it. I don't really know that space very well. I think we should talk to Suzanne Lee about it, or that friend who has been working on fashion wearables for like 20 years.
That's very interesting. We should definitely get someone on the pod that knows more about wearable electronics and then bioelectronics. Maybe Mike Levin can come on, Dr. Mike Levin.
Yeah, so that was excellent. And then I went to an event at Biolabs, and you were at an event at Biolabs last night. The event I went to on Friday was focused on AI and biotechnology. And I know a couple of weeks ago, I had ranted about a panel that was really bad. This panel was actually really good. The people on the panel were excellent. Our friend Hamdi of Merck Digital Science was on the panel. There was an IP lawyer. There were two founders. Just excellent overall in terms of their point of view of how artificial intelligence is changing the game of drug discovery. And I thought that it was just such a nice contrast to the bad panel I'd gone to a couple of weeks ago. Drug discovery is a huge thing. We don't talk about it so much on this podcast, but we're going to do a little bit of drug development, drug discovery talk now before we get into the podcast. Now, you had mentioned, and I was shocked by this, but I shouldn't be surprised, that there was some news that came out about a research organization that was mistreating beagles of all things. Tell the story, Erum.
Yeah, I subscribe to a lot of biotech, biopharma newsletters, and I came across this story. Stat News reported it. They were mainly focusing on the CRO's mistreatment of beagles, but it went into details on, and I don't want to make this such a bummer, but it's the truth. They were not feeding the dogs well. The food was spoiled. They went long time without food. They had all sorts of, I don't even know how to say this, off diseases, because the reality of in vivo testing, which when a lot of drugs are made, they get tested on animals. People think of rats, but it's not just rats, right? It ends up going on a chain of complexities. So it could start off in fish, then in mice, then in rats, then in dogs, then in monkeys. That's one practice of drug development in terms of understanding the toxicity of drugs. But what they do is that they have to induce a disease in order to test to see if the disease is cured. So some of these animals, they do have cancer. Cancer is induced in these animals in order to treat it. But these beagles were having all sorts of other diseases. And I'll share a link just so you can see what the situation was. Because first of all, animal testing is already fraught with a lot of horrible situations. But then to even treat these animals even worse. But luckily, Animal Rescue came to this CRO. They shut it down. They rescued 4,000 beagles. And now those beagles are available for adoption. This is in West Virginia. So if anyone's looking for a pet, they're so cute. I mean, they're just cute animals. This is a good way of helping animals. So we'll share that link in the show notes. I need to find out exactly what adoption agencies, but I think they went to several because that's 4,000 beagles, but around the Virginia area. So I am excited when you're talking about leveraging not just AI, but simulations or new physics or new math to develop drugs and test them and predict their efficacy and the reduction of toxicity versus having to use animals that are innocent. Like, why are we doing this? Also, companies are doing lab on a chip, organ on a chip. They're just creating these models to do drug development, not in living animals. Let's promote that more. I already hear pharma executives being like, oh, you're so naive. That's not how things work. Let's make it work that way. Hopefully we can change the game in drug development.
On Friday, they were doing predictions, 5-10 years. What do you see down the line? And someone may have even said, I predict that animal studies will go away. I find that a little bit hard to believe because animal studies do ensure the safety of humans.
Not really, though, Karl.
Okay.
Because there's some safety, but how many pharmaceutical drugs have multiple side effects?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not even accurate. Pharma, remember, we mentioned this in a previous episode, that pharma's reckoning is coming because it's a big shot in the dark, a lot of guessing. There has been efficiency. I'm not going to lie, of course. I don't want to be like it's horrible, but there are ways to do things differently to make drugs more safe and effective. And then also taking a step back, taking a look at the disease and saying, is it really a pharmaceutical drug that's going to come and resolve this? Or is it going to be a lifestyle change? Is it going to be certain foods that need to be eaten? So yes, I get it. It has helped because we didn't have the technology, the know-how to do tox studies. So animals were a good proxy for that. But now, can we just take a beat and reevaluate how drug development's happening and just put policies into place and be like, look, we're already not that great at developing drugs. All these animals, we're making them suffer. We're spending all this money. That's a big thing too. Let's just see how we can do it more efficiently. And the companies we speak to, the startups, the innovators in biopharma, they are coming up with those solutions. They are trying to make it more effective, faster, cheaper, and not so detrimental to animals. So hopefully those companies get a faster head start so we can stop this madness with testing on animals.
Yeah. So first of all, you're totally right. And also, it was interesting to hear Michael Levin of Tufts. He didn't talk about drug development, but he just talked about how we need to start to accept biology for being more than just genes and really understanding that there is this continuum of life. So I think once we start to really respect life in all its forms, we will take a completely different approach to the way that we work with life. So yes, we do want to get rid of the animals, the mammals that are used for drug discovery.
Yeah, the BioLabs event that I went to was the Innovator and Investor Exchange. It was really great. There was one company, I love the way that they framed human genetics. The company was called Matter Bioworks. And they were like, to understand human genetics, humans are not just one genome. There are trillions of genomes because you have immune cells. You have to consider the whole environment, all the different cells that work together. It's like the whole commentary we did on 23andMe, which I'll link to in the show notes, is why 23andMe is not that useful for drug development companies, is that it only looked at part of the human germ cell. The cells that get passed on and inherited, that is the one cell line, and they only have fragments of that knowledge. But the somatic cells and the immune cells and the microbes that all interplay in our bodies, that information is really important. So Matter Bioworks was taking this interesting approach, or they were positioning themselves saying, look, we're looking at all the genomes that are in our bodies, not just the one. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to go one level more on this whole drug development rabbit hole, Elliot Hirschberg, who was just on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, recently wrote a piece about drug development in the context of CRISPR and genetic diseases. So CRISPR is a gene editing tool. It allows you to, I'm going to say very easily, it's not very easy. It is still very complicated to change a gene in an organism.
Very accurately,
very precisely. And so there's this thing called the Innovative Genomics Institute, which is founded by CRISPR Nobel laureate Jennifer Doudna. Their whole goal is to scale up the development of CRISPR cures. And they started a collaboration with a company called Danaher, which owns a big DNA synthesis company. But what happens with CRISPR is, like, if you develop a platform that basically enables you to deliver the DNA medicine to a very specific place in the body, the only thing that you have to change in that medicine is the CRISPR guide sequence. So it's like you're changing just a little bit of DNA. Instead of having to reinvent the wheel every time and only do these rare diseases where you're charging $1 million or $2 million a drug, if you're able to come up with a different way to develop these drugs and you can get a platform approved, you could actually move a lot faster. So Elliot's piece is really good. We should link to it. It's very worthwhile to just, if you're interested in drug development, it is something we've started to talk a little bit more about here on Grow Everything. But anything that happens in that space ends up being moved into just general biotech. So I think it's interesting to kind of pay attention to it.
Yeah, you and I have been in the biopharma space for a really long time before Grow Everything. Half of our practice is biopharma at Messaging Lab. So it is something that's always on our mind. And it's all related. Biology is everything.
So look, there's been some extreme weather events that are just demonstrating how climate change is going to change things. And those weather events have impacted the supply of some of our favorite foods: coffee, chocolate, olive oil, and wine. So they're driving up the prices. Cocoa, which is necessary for making chocolate, reached record highs this year. And global wine yields are lower than they've ever been. olive oil prices have doubled.
Yeah, I seen that. Yep.
And wine production is moving norther to countries including Sweden. So there's a change that's happening. And biotechnology and synthetic biology is one of the ways that we're going to address these changes. And Checkerspot is developing oils from algae that have multiple uses. I'm a huge admirer of Charlie and the Checkerspot team and the products that they've put out. And so I'm really looking forward to this interview so that we can catch up with him, find out what they've got going on. And for those of you who are listening, please listen to the whole episode because we have a special announcement at the end.
Charles Dimmler, we are so happy to have you back on the Grow Everything podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Good to see you both.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you. There's been a lot going on at Checkerspot. Charles, you were on a year ago, but a lot of people don't know anything about Checkerspot. So could you give an introduction to those few people who might not know what you guys are doing?
Yeah, Checkerspot, we were founded in 2016. We are focused fundamentally on utilizing biotechnology, synthetic biology, or biomanufacturing, all of those terms. And we're orienting the technology towards producing oil and lipids, fats that offer an opportunity as an alternative to both fossil fuels as well as to commodity vegetable oils. We've taken the strategy of focusing our commercial efforts on entering into the market in materials applications and more specifically in outdoor recreation as a place to start. But since we began commercializing materials, we've grown into some adjacent markets that now include food, nutrition, and personal care. Here we are in 2024. Checkerspot today has 3 oil profiles, 3 different types of oils that we're focused on. And we have a small portfolio of both materials and ingredients that we're commercializing in a couple of different verticals with a growing portfolio of customers and partners.
Amazing. Amazing. And in terms of the biotechnology that you're leveraging and the inspiration you're deriving from nature, is that mostly from algae? Can you talk a little bit more about what's going on behind the scenes? Obviously, no IP needs to be spilled here, but can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've always been acutely focused on working in microalgae. And it isn't because we have anything against any other host platform or organism. It has everything to do with the fact that we know this platform organism very well. And the most important thing that we know to be true is its ability to scale. We have a team at Checkerspot that is among a small group of folks in the world that have the experience of taking something from bench to full commercial production at industrial scale and having done that more than one time. And with microalgae, we know that we can produce tailored oils, tailored triglycerides at scale and at an attractive cost structure in a manner that unlocks performance benefits in products, makes products better, and where we can help our customers and our partners achieve their decarbonization targets. And so we've really thought about, on a strategic basis, focusing on delivering products at the right price with discernible performance advantages that translates to value and decarbonizing. And that's really created the commercial momentum that we're seeing. And all of that's enabled by microalgae and the fact that we know that it scales.
Amazing. So you said you've got 3 oil platforms, if I can call them that. Is that right?
I would call them profiles. There are
Okay.
3 different types of oils that have different chemistries, one of which we are working with a large partner, that's AAK, and we haven't disclosed the oil profile.
Okay. You've got customers that are buying them, but then you guys also have your own sister companies, if I can call them that are developing things like outdoor gear. And now you're in the personal care and beauty space, but you've got a larger set of customers that are just buying the pure oil for their own applications. Is that correct?
It's mostly correct. I would say it a little bit differently, Karl, because one thing to clarify is that we don't have sister companies. We have 2 brands that we've brought to market, but these brands aren't entities. They're not incorporated. They're not set up as companies. They're brands under the portfolio of Checkerspot. And I feel it's important to contextualize it or to describe it in the context of a framework. And that framework is the innovation platform, which we call it the WING platform. And the WING platform is defined by 4 different capability sets. The cornerstone of that is what we refer to as the molecular foundry. And this is the biotechnology, the synthetic biology. The second of 4 is a polymer science, a material science capability that allows us to take either the oils themselves or the constituent fatty acids and assemble them utilizing chemistry to get to materials that have, again, discernible, valuable performance features. And we've started with urethanes and with textile finishes in the context of materials and polymer science. The third is in our facility in Salt Lake City, Utah, we have what we call the Checkerspot Design Lab that allows us to design, build, prototype, test both parts and products based upon the materials that we're innovating. You can think of it as machine shop think, CNC tooling, and things like 3D printing that allow us to bring to life and to test parts and products based on the materials. And then fourth and finally, which is most germane to your question, Karl, is consumer engagement. And what we experienced in a past life is how valuable, how beneficial it can be to bring to life what's possible with materials and ingredients by engaging with consumers, by bringing to life the performance advantages of the materials and ingredients, which in effect de-risks the adoption of those materials and ingredients with customers and partners up and down the value chain, from factories all the way down to consumer brands. By having the WING platform structured as it is, and by having consumer engagement, what we now have the data to show is the demand curve gets pulled in. It's de-risked when you sit down with a customer and can talk about an actual cost of goods and an actual value chain and customers that are utilizing the products and are raving about it. It's an amplifier in helping to move forward with B2B commercialization efforts. And so when we think about Checkerspot's business model, we're acutely focused on B2B, and we see what we're doing with consumer as a way to achieve that strategically.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that approach. You were talking about your initial efforts producing urethane and in the material space. The first products you launched were skis, correct? Is that the first thing, or what were the first products that entered the market?
The very first product that entered into the market was a textile finish that we commercialized with Beyond Surface Technologies, which is a Swiss-based specialty chemical company founded by a bunch of alum from Ciba-Geigy and Basel, Switzerland. And BST, we began collaborating with them and supplying them with an algal oil that was then developed and formulated into a textile finish. It's called Midori BioEconomy. That is hydrophilic. It pulls moisture away from the skin. And that was technically the first product that came to market, Midori BioEconomy, and the partnership with BST. Just behind that, as you just pointed out, it was skis. And in this case, we're utilizing actually the same oil, but applied through chemistry to get to not one, but 2 different types of urethanes, a rigid foam and cast polyurethane, both of which we engineered targeting strength to weight and damping or energy absorbing properties that we went through a lot of prototyping and bench testing to get to something that led to improved performance. And then we ultimately came to market through our brand Wonder Alpine. Today, we have a portfolio of customers that are accessing the materials that have been brought to life with Wonder Alpine.
I think that's amazing. Do you think that it would be typical for an end user at either a chemical designer focused on textiles to understand that the same oil that they're using for their textile coating would be the same one that could be turned into a polyurethane that could be used for skis?
I think that there are, without question, individuals on the value chain that have the understanding that many of the molecular building blocks, the monomers that come from commodity vegetable oils or come from petroleum and fossil fuels, feed multiple different application sets, and application sets that I might describe as surprisingly different. I don't think that's necessarily a mystery, but with your question, when it comes to product developers at brands, I think what we've seen in the last 15, 20 years, at least, is this indexing towards globalization and a lot of the applications development capabilities and the factories moving overseas to different regions of the world. The brands, especially as they've grown and had more and more market traction, have gotten more and more focused on bringing the product to market and engaging with consumers. So you can think big marketing budgets. But when it comes to product development, we've become more reliant on the factories to do applications development as opposed to the brands themselves. I think a consequence of that, what we found is there have been situations with product developers, designers at brands, and they'll say, we're utilizing this foam in this application set. And we say, well, where does it come from? And what are the specifications? And it's not uncommon to hear, well, we don't know exactly what the specifications are. We can get that from the factory. We also are seeing with digital technologies and computing that a lot of the product design is being done in silico and then in CAD drawings to, again, the factories. But there's always a translation from the digital to the physical as a consequence of the globalization and the consequence of some of these dynamics that I'm trying to touch on. What we're hearing from some of the consumer brands that we're engaging with now is how valuable it is to disintermediate the factory and to get reacquainted with applications development and testing products and to just designing them in a different way that lends itself to ultimately a lower investment, faster product development, and a better carbon footprint and efficiency. We're finding that the way, again, that we structured the Wing platform has its own value propositions that the market is responding to.
One of the questions I had was still around your thinking behind starting in materials and the outdoor space. Was that coming from an economics standpoint? Things that are high margin would make more sense? Or I know you have a passion for the outdoors. Was it simply a decision because of that? Why did you decide to start in the material space when you have opportunities to go really in many, many different markets?
The direct answer to your question about whether it was economics is a resounding and enthusiastic yes. It's definitely about the economics. You're also right that I am an outdoor recreation enthusiast. I love being in the mountains, and it would be less than forthright to suggest that that had nothing to do with it. But ultimately, it was, and it is, the business case. The most important thing among a variety of reasons that outdoor recreation is interesting is number one, outdoor recreation is a surprisingly large market. I think when I was looking at the data, this is years ago, and saw in total outdoor recreation is larger than the pharmaceutical industry in the US, I was incredulous. And your reaction right there, it's like, wait, how can that be? Is that correct? Second is where we, as the synthetic biology industry, think about applications and use cases. I'll take the point of view that they're not all created equal, that there are some applications and use cases that just are more emotive, where as a consequence of them being more emotive, consumers are more discerning about the materials and the ingredients that are being utilized in the products. And I think when we look at the consumer world in general, we've seen just a proliferation of brands that have emerged because the barriers to entry are lower than they have ever been historically as a consequence of digital technology. That proliferation, we're all trying to compete for attention. We're all trying to compete for mind share, the attention economy. There's really only three ways that consumer brands can compete for attention or win attention. One is the story that they tell about where the brand came from, what they stand for, what they're delivering. The second is the design of the product, how it's built. And then the third is the materials or the ingredients that make that product better. When we look at outdoor recreation, when we look at things like prestige beauty, there are these categories where consumers do care a lot. They will be prepared to pay premiums to get better performing products. And I might juxtapose that with, say, household lubricants. One of the pieces of history from Checkerspot is when we started out, again, with this oil that I was referring to that feeds multiple markets, we knew that it had great qualities for lubricant applications, things like lubricity, things like oxidative stability. We started in this really simple application set, which was a lubricant for bicycle chains. But when we were going out and talking with bike shop owners and with consumers, and we did this big pilot with one of the big tech companies here in the Bay Area that has a fleet of bicycles, people aren't spending a lot of time thinking about like, oh, look at this. This product has 15% greater oxidative stability. I'm totally going to go with that product application, that category. As valuable as it is, it's not as emotive as a ski, a snowboard, a jacket, or an anti-aging serum, like in prestige beauty. There's just some products that create that emotional connection. So for all of those reasons, we thought there was an interesting opportunity to come to market in this way. And then along the way, we learned that it's not the first time this has been done. We look at carbon fiber, which was innovated back in the 70s and 80s. It first came to market in applications like golf club shafts and tennis rackets and bicycle frames, on the path to being qualified in automotive and aerospace, where we see it used more ubiquitously today. So there was both our analysis of the business case and the economics, but also drawing on some of these observations around what it takes to break through into the market, combined with a historical context.
Hi, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Messaging Lab, the force multiplier for biotech. Your biotech company is making the world a better place. You know that, we know that. But does the world? There's a big reason why some biotech companies attract investors, sign up customers, and get attention. That reason is strategic communications. At Messaging Lab, we translate complex science and economics into compelling narratives. And we have done that for the most successful biotech companies across healthcare, agriculture, personal care and beauty, materials, and the list goes on. We're here to make sure your ideas not only get heard, but resonate with your audience. So if it's time to amplify your company's voice, visit messaginglab.com to explore how we can elevate your story and grow your business.
I find that so fascinating and want to just make a comment because I remember reading something where, let's just say 3/4 of Americans consider themselves to be outdoor enthusiasts. So across the political divide, let's just say most people do consider themselves someone who wants to be outdoors and wants to protect nature and wants to experience nature on a regular basis. What I find fascinating about what you just said, Charlie, is this fact that it's almost like outdoor sports, outdoor apparel, because it does have that premium expectation to it, it sounds like it's a perfect test bed for a lot of the things that could be done with synthetic biology and biotech. The question I want to ask you is, what was it like for you as an outdoors person to get on a pair of Wonder Alpine skis or one of the snowboards? What was the emotion that you felt as you saw your oil embodied in this product?
Little Cottonwood Canyon, right outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, early 2019. We actually captured it on video. It's something that will be an important moment in the history of Checkerspot. And I remember exactly what happened that day, who I was with. It was a really significant defining moment in the history of the company, and one that didn't come easy. There was a lot of discussion around, will it be possible? Can we do this? Are we going to be able to hit the physical properties that we're targeting? And that, I think, is just so characteristic of the innovation journey generally. And we did. And you said something a moment ago, Karl, that I think is important to punctuate, which is in outdoor recreation, especially in the way that Wonder Alpine's products are engineered, they're engineered for backcountry travel. You can use them. Many of our customers are using them inbound at resorts and whatnot, but they're engineered for backcountry travel. In the backcountry, you have a responsibility to yourself and to others to travel and to be a steward that keeps everybody safe. You can't compromise on performance, because compromising on performance can literally translate to life or death situations. And I think that also raised the bar in terms of what we were solving for. And the term you used was test ground. And that's an important part of the thought process, going back to Arum's question. This is an application set where you can't cut corners and you have to be as dialed and diligent as possible. Interesting way that you phrased the question that I just wanted to punctuate and reinforce.
Yeah. Can we double click on the performance characteristics? Because I'm really curious to know, how has it improved? So urethane in traditional skis, what is that doing versus what the Checkerspot urethane is doing? What are the enhancements?
Besides the sustainability benefits and the fact that we can move past things like ABS plastic, let's skate past that. The physical properties are strength to weight, damping. That's what we were targeting as we were innovating the product. We also stumbled upon with the cast urethane, which is the sidewall of the ski. So it runs longitudinally along the sides of the skis and the snowboards, that there was remarkable bond strength with the adjacent material. So there's like an adhesive component to it as well. We've seen that translates to torsional strength that gives the ski greater pop when you're coming out of turns. So that was not something, frankly, that we were targeting or we designed for, but that ended up being another physical property that was valuable. But what I would really want to focus on, coming back to the platform, is that as we launched Wonder Alpine, as the demand curve came in, as we started engaging with others within the outdoor recreation industry, they started sampling the materials. We were able to not only get insight from how other brands think about qualifying materials, but greater insight in how the factories that are supplying them think about materials and the applications development and the specifications, and actually getting access to those groups and into those factories that allows our platform to continue to get better. So we've learned along the way how we can continue to innovate and modify the formulations to not only hit the specifications of our customers and our partners, but also that allows Wonder Alpine's products to continue to be at the bleeding edge. And behind these initial materials, we have a very focused, curated portfolio of other things that we're working on, either alone or in conjunction with partners, that we can bring to life through the brand.
Okay, I want to hit on this question again, Charlie, because I want you to paint the picture. Like you said, Cottonwood Canyon in Utah. Did you hike in? Was it skis? Was it a snowboard? What did it feel like to you as you pushed off and you had this amazing thing that your company had put together under your feet, carving through the snow, going downhill? Did you have to hike in?
Yeah, and I'm going to be super honest with you. So again, 2019, just to paint the picture a little bit, we founded the company in 2016. So at this point, we're 2.5, 3 years into the journey. This is quintessential, I think, with any startup. It was full gas, full on, really intense. And just on a personal level, we had not one, but two of our children that were born about 18, 19 months apart in 2016 and 2017. We were also a part of the Fashion for Good accelerator program in the Netherlands, and I was traveling back and forth every couple of weeks. So not sleeping well, traveling a ton, really intense work. The only reason why I'm voicing that is because as somebody who has always been an outdoor enthusiast and engaged in endurance sports, this was not a time in my life where I had peak fitness, let's say.
You weren't getting out and running a lot every day.
No, maybe once or twice a week at best. And so on the day of, I flew from Oakland to Salt Lake, picked up at the airport, straight to the trailhead. So going from sea level to 10, 11,000 feet. And it's not so much hiking, but skinning. So you're on skis and you're skinning uphill. It was intense. I was able to muscle my way up to the first summit, the saddle. The conditions were amazing. Bluebird, blue sky, powder snow, untracked, just quintessential awesome backcountry skiing. Drop into the bowl. By this point, I'm like on a high because it's the first time that quote unquote algae skis had been utilized in the world. The group that I was with, which were all part of Checkerspot, they were like, all right, let's go climb that hill. And I was like, what? Like, I think I've reached my limit in terms of how I'm feeling in the fitness. The honest truth is that it was a struggle in terms of my fitness level at the time. And I did climb that second pitch, but I had the help and the support of my teammates in carrying some of my gear because it was not my finest moment in getting up to that other pitch. So that's the honest story of where I was at that point in life and how that went. But I'll stop with this, that I also feel it's metaphorical because, as I said before, this was a defining moment. It was characterized by a lot of struggle, both in the travel and on the personal front, just being a parent and like all of these demands and like raising capital and then being there in this bluebird day with powder snow. It's amazing. But like in doing hard things, there's going to be struggle. There's going to be discomfort. There's going to be pain. But that's par for the course. And I think over time, I've just gotten to a place where it's not that I'm seeking discomfort or pain or wishing it for anybody, but I'm very much more attuned to the fact that the things that often provide the greatest meaning, the things that we derive joy from, as reflected in skiing on algae skis for the first time, the journey in getting there and getting up to the top of that saddle was challenging, actually and metaphorically.
Amazing.
Thanks for sharing that story. That's incredible. You struggled all the way to get up there. Suffering's a part of life, and it makes life a little bit more exciting.
Well, and the thing is, when we got to the top, I was doing my best to put on the happy face, and I was like, this is amazing. And I was legitimately happy, but I didn't reveal the pain in getting up there. And then when we got down after that first pitch, it was like, wait, we're going to do that again. And I don't know that I have it in me. This is a lot. Super memorable day.
Amazing.
I love the fact that you were able to start this company and create a product that also aligned with your passion, even though it was economically driven, but it was able to culminate into this moment. And that you also had talked about an analogy in the nanofiber space where they first started in applications, golf clubs and other sporting equipment. Where do you see the analogy for Checkerspot? Okay, so you're starting with skis. There's those applications. Do you see it going on boats, or what's the big catch for you guys as you grow?
Yeah, I think one of the worst kept secrets or realities in the world is that the global economy runs on carbon. We talk so much in the context of a post-petroleum future and moving to a transportation fleet run on electrons and renewable energy and the promises that exist there. But the worst kept secret is that the global economy runs on carbon, and like all of these polymers and all of these other applications that are vast. It's everywhere in all walks of life and everything that we do. And so when we think about the opportunity set, this is a market that is defined in trillions. The bigger challenge that we face, and we being the synthetic biology industry in general, is thinking about how to approach the challenge of focus and not spreading yourself too thin. Like you can't go and be all things to all people and all groups. The way at Checkerspot that we've thought about that is to be very focused in terms of our innovation capability and 3 oils that I described earlier and the small portfolio of material applications, and then to put those into the hands of companies on the value chain beyond surface technologies. Or we have AAK, which I mentioned. We have the Japanese chemical company DIC that's been an amazing partner. We've continued to grow and build a relationship where they have the existing distribution and infrastructure. We don't have to recreate that. Checkerspot can stay focused on its core competency. But to perhaps answer your question more specifically, 5 years ago or so, we went through this process of visioning as a team, thinking about what are the different applications, and then creating single high-res images of everything from rockets to automobiles to really sleek design, like home and office furnishings and prestige beauty, and in all like really emotive categories. We did that as a visioning exercise to think about where can we go and how might we sequence these things. And the reason I wanted to voice that, in addition to trying to answer your question as directly as possible, is because over the course of the last few weeks, we have gone through a process to do a similar exercise in thinking about when we look at our portfolio of customers and partners and the things that are now on the market, let's similarly have those high-res images and application sets. And I have to say, it's been really inspiring for me because a lot of the things that are now in the world that we've done, we visioned years ago in these very unlikely applications. One example would be oil that we're commercializing in food. And we now have a partnership with an emerging brand called Algae Cooking Club that includes a partnership. It was working with Daniel Hum, who is of 11 Madison Park, a Michelin-rated chef that 11 Madison Park is known for its vegan fare and is utilizing this oil because of the performance benefits. And now Algae Cooking Club, you can find it on store shelves at grocery stores, and they're really on a tear growing. It's that concept of tapping into network effects, tapping into the innovators and disruptors and designers. That's where I think the world really advances and progresses. And to see these different use cases now coming to life has been really energizing.
That's amazing. So inspirational. I wanted to hit on this idea that you guys put out some news couple months ago. You had published in Frontiers in Nutrition. So I think it's very related to this Algae Cooking Club. And you talked about the development and production of a human milk analog using microalgae fermentation. And this could be used in infant nutrition. How did that come about? Was it that you were looking at infant nutrition and saw that there was this lack, which we know exists? Or was it that you realized the platform could be used to develop that?
Well, let me first define specifically what it is, and then I'll answer the part about why and how we got there. What you're referring to is one of the three oil profiles that we're focused on. This is called OPO, which stands for oleic, palmitic, oleic. And you're spot on, Karl, the first marquee. And OPO is really only found naturally in mother's milk. It's essential for infant development. Application set is infant nutrition. And when you think of infant nutrition, infant formula, for those in the world that either are having challenges or can't, for whatever reason, breastfeed, nurse, infant nutrition is utilized. And the big companies try to get something similar to OPO through a chemical process that's not the same. We know that from an analytical chemistry perspective. And therefore, it doesn't have the same benefit as the full fat OPO does in infant nutrition. That's what it is. Similar to what I was describing earlier around defining moments and envisioning. In 2016, 2017, not long after we had founded, the team was small. We were about 4 or 5 people, and we sat around a workspace in downtown Oakland. We're visioning, we want to do something that's a world's first. We want to do something that nobody else has done before. Long story short, ended up thinking that could be an interesting target. To a few years later, to have achieved that and delivered it has been a really important milestone and defining moment in the history of the company. Now, strategically, it's not just about doing something that's a world's first, but OPO, to put it in context with another full fat, also, by the way, produced by microalgae and fermentation, is DHA. And DHA was pioneered by the likes of Martech. And Martech, as I think a lot of people know, was acquired by DSM, and was acquired by DSM for over $1 billion for that one molecule. So from a business case perspective, really attractive and interesting. And we were definitely studying that as a precedent in developing the conviction for this target. But beyond this being a world's first, the fact that you can only find OPO in mother's milk, nobody has looked at it in the context of other application sets, whether that's material applications, whether that's as an ingredient in other products. And that's really intriguing. And the reason that I wanted to emphasize this is because coming back to commodity markets and commodity monomers, there's a shockingly small set of building blocks that we utilize to feed millions of products. Yet there's this natural molecular diversity, even beyond oils, like proteins and other things. But let's just stay within the context of oils. There's a natural molecular diversity of oils that exist today, that plants produce. The problem is that those plants aren't grown in the arable regions of the world. You can't get these oils in any meaningful quantity from a barrel of crude oil. That's the thing. That was the aha moment. That's what synthetic biology and industrial biotechnology unlocks. It's the ability to take the genes from those plants, plug them into a microbial expression system, microalgae, that we know scales to be able to unlock these things. And so there's this white space of natural molecular diversity that exists much in the way when we think of white space in quantum computing or white space in AI, that it represents massive market opportunity to do totally new things. That's where I draw energy around the future of synthetic biology. It's like, how can we demonstrate the business case, the fundamental unit economics, the supply chain, the partners, the customers, the markets, the scale, all of the things to earn the opportunity to go after that white space. And OPO is the tip of the spear as we do that in a very focused way.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think that's one of the cores and the belief we have here at Grow Everything, right? The idea that synthetic biology can replace a lot of these synthetic chemicals, these petroleum-derived chemicals. There's a lot of chemicals that we just don't know about and how it affects our environments. I was talking to someone yesterday, and they're in the world of luxury perfumes, but she's really focused on the naturals. And she was telling me about fragrance is everything. And if you look at any type of product, and we on average wear 15 different personal care products, and then women with makeup, it's another layer of product. And on the ingredients label, it just says fragrance. It doesn't tell you what's in those fragrances. And one of the most toxic chemicals is actually synthetic musk. That's Axe body spray. Come on. And that's like causing all sorts of damages to microorganisms and wildlife as it gets flushed down the drain, especially when people are traveling to the great outdoors, talking about that, and they're going to resorts. They're bringing their products with them. They're taking showers, and it's all going. I don't want this to be a doom and gloom, but I do want to point out that there's a huge opportunity, obviously, on the economic side, and it's core to Checkerspot's mission on the sustainability side to rethink how things are being made using synthetic biology, not synthetic chemistry, if that's the term we could use. But to kind of shift gears here, there's been some movement in Checkerspot on some of the personal care side. Can you talk to us about what's going on over there?
Yeah. So we recently announced we have pre-launched a very focused personal care brand called Weather Skincare, and Weather drawing on the history and the legacy of Wonder Alpine, where Wonder is disemboweled, so there's no vowels in it, it's WNDR. Weather is similarly disemboweled, so it's WTHR Skincare, and it is a platform of 4 SKUs that we have been meticulous in producing and developing that are targeted for the same consumer base, which is the mountain athlete. Although with Wonder Alpine, historically, before Wonder Alpine launched a capsule collection in apparel, it was so focused on winter. And now with apparel, it's more across all seasons. Weather is definitely across all seasons and includes sunscreen and lip balm and a moisturizer and a cleanser that is specifically formulated and developed for the mountain athlete and beyond. It brings to life not just our proprietary ingredients, but a few from our partners as well. We're really excited about, in the same vein as Wonder Alpine being an extension of our laboratory, Weather Skincare is an extension of our laboratory to help us bring to life what's possible.
Amazing. Tell us about what products are included in the system and what biotech ingredients are in those. What do they do?
Well, the products in the system, it's sunscreen, lip balm, moisturizer, so aftercare, and cleanser. The ingredient that I would focus on is microalgal oil. And the oil in this case, in this application set, accomplishes a few things. One, it provides moisturizing benefits. It also provides a bit of a barrier to the elements and for the skin. There's evidence and data that it helps as a carrier for other ingredients that in some cases can actually penetrate the skin and be helpful. And then in addition, it just has a stability and there are benefits from a formulation perspective that are less visible perhaps to the consumer, but are really important in the context of the formulation and the full package that is delivered. We're pretty excited about it. I've been using it now for the better part of 6-9 months, and I'm sold. I hope as more consumers and customers get a hold of it, that they will be too.
Yeah, well, you look great, so it must be working.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious to know, what are the common ingredients that the microalgal oil is replacing? What's the oil that is commonly used in some of those ingredients?
Yeah, palm oil is definitely one that more formulators and brands are looking to move away from. There are other oils that bring with it odor. A good example of that might be like an avocado oil. There are oils that don't have as much stability. There are oils that don't have the same purity, especially in the context of sourcing. Oils that can be too specialized and be restricted from a cost basis because they come from agricultural sources. There's a number of different alternatives that we're replacing and being able to compete by delivering discernible benefits, cost structure, and sustainability. That concept that we talked about earlier.
Amazing. So what's next for Checkerspot for 2024 and beyond? What's the growth plan?
I would say conceptually, what we've seen is product market fit. And what we've seen is that we're at this moment where there just appears to be a zeitgeist in the world around a post-petroleum future and moving past some of the commodity vegetable oils that may not serve us in the ways that are sustainable going forward. As a consequence, there's just this groundswell of demand for the types of things that we and others in synthetic biology are doing. I'm really energized is that the model has been validated. We have the data to show that we've pulled in the demand curve, that we have a growing portfolio of use cases and customers, that putting these innovations into the hands of brands in the fashion that's de-risked, it has traction. So now it's like demonstrating deeper penetration into the market where the revenue profile of the company shifts with some of the larger relationships that we now have in place. We're poised to demonstrate that. And to demonstrate that, having been, capital efficient on the other side of the calculus in terms of raising capital and then by extension, capital allocation. And so one is greater revenue from the context of the B2B business and partners and customers. And then second, greater visibility in what I think will be surprising categories of this technology demonstrating improved performance in products and visibility in areas of commerce and in areas of culture and influence that I think will be very, very compelling to show the world that much in the same way that ChatGPT demonstrated with learning language models that AI was moving from concept and technological development to something that people could understand and is accessible with skis and snowboards and apparel and personal care products and things that I can't yet talk about, but are large and impactful. I think the world's going to see that this isn't a science experiment, that it's real. It's available today. There's a huge growth opportunity, not just for the innovators, but for those up and down the value chain to create and capture value. Business is the way that we're going to see real tectonic shifts and transformation in a post-petroleum world.
Oh, so well said. So well said. I'm really jazzed about this microalgae oil. Is that something that other people can purchase directly from you? Or right now you're only using it for your personal care products?
Well, definitely with Algae Cooking Club, just rave reviews from consumers like, I'm utilizing it regularly at home. That's easy. You can now pre-order weather skincare and give that a shot. Skis and snowboards. We also have the pollinator kit, which allows designers and innovators to utilize urethane that we supply. There's a number of different ways. And I think you'll see more customers that are bringing their products to market that are featuring biology inside coming from Checkerspot.
It's amazing. We'll put all of that in the show notes because I'm sure people are really excited to use them. I know I am. And we'll definitely report back. You teased some big things coming up in the future later this year. So going to have you back on. I think you'll be maybe the first three-peat guest that we're going to be having because there's always a lot going on Checkerspot. And Charles, thank you so much for coming back on. We really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Yeah.
It's my pleasure. Like I always enjoy our conversations. And Erum, Karl, there's something that I feel compelled to say about what you're doing with the Grow podcast, because it is demonstrating that across the space, there are really interesting technologies and use cases that are bringing to life this possibility. And I'm not the only one I know that draws energy and inspiration from what you're doing and how you're telling the story and how you're bringing this to life. And so I just wanted to voice that, show my appreciation, and thank you for doing what you're doing. And thank you for having me on again. And I look forward to continuing the conversation, whether it's on air or one-on-one.
Thank you so much, Charlie.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. See you later.
Erum, what did you think about the episode?
I loved it. I mean, clearly, Charles is a great speaker. He's a great leader. They continue to innovate. They continue to expand and succeed. He did a great storytelling. You asked some really great questions in terms of getting to his way of thinking, but I just love to hear him speak. I feel like there's a Steve Jobs-esque way about Charles when he talks. And I love the fact that he's thinking, obviously, globally. He's thinking of his team. I love that he has these vision exercises with his team to keep everyone following that North Star. But what about you? What were your thoughts?
I hope I wasn't too rude to Charlie, and I kind of pressed him on that story of what was it like to ride the skis for the first time. And he admitted that was a historic moment for Checkerspot, and yet he barely remembers it because he was exhausted. He was flying around the world. He had a couple of young kids in the house. His team was making him go up this hill, and then he got to ride the snowboard or the skis, and then they wanted him to do it again. So as much as he was reminiscing about how wonderful that was, you could tell it was hard for him because it was a very difficult time for the company. They were also raising money at that time. So there is this thing where people look at founders and they're held up on this pedestal because they are doing great things and changing the world. But many people don't realize how much work goes into it and how much sacrifice people make.
Yeah. It was good. I think as you were asking him those questions, he really started to visualize that moment in time. And I'm sure that he appreciated the time to reflect on that moment. And hopefully his team listens to that story, his other stakeholders in Checkerspot, fans of the company, and fans of the various brands that he mentioned in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Checkerspot and Charlie and the team have a lot of lessons for other biotech founders that aren't working in biopharma because, like our friends at K18 Hair, they've really focused on getting products into the hands of users. They've learned a lot through their Wonder Alpine division. They developed their pollinator kit for designers to use. And then now they've got this weather product, which is a personal care product, which I'm really excited to get my hands on. As someone who's out in the world and is in the great outdoors, I'm really looking forward to innovation happening in the personal care and beauty space, especially when it comes to sunscreens and skincare. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of challenges in the beauty industry. The beauty industry does move very quickly, as we know. They are challenged by sustainability. They're challenged by how to deal with new materials. And I think that having Checkerspot enter a very niche part of that space is very exciting.
Yeah. And our listeners can also try the Weather Skincare brand of products. So when you go to weatherskincare.com, so that's WTHR, skincare.com. You can just use discount code GROWEVERYTHING20 for 20% off your first order. Thank you so much to the Weather team for giving our listeners a discount.
I'm looking forward to trying it and can't wait to get my hands on their product. Was there anything else about them that we want to tell our listeners, or is that the pod?
I'm ready to get some of their microalgal oil for cooking. That I'm so interested in. I love to cook. So for our listeners, we love you. We thank you so much for listening. We would love to get to know you more, become more active in the Grow Everything community. And the easiest way to do that is to become a Patreon. So in the show notes, you can just click on the Patreon link to join. And we would love to speak with you and learn more about how you are thinking about growing everything.
Excellent. That's the pod.